Well, come up here with us. We might not hear it.
I have not. I've not heard from Mr. Gannon, so yes, I'll text him here in a second if you want me to, and we'll go from there. How's that? And we are now live, folks. So we are now live. I know he's got a copy of that, Derek. So. Agenda. I've got mine if you want me to. It was in the press release too, Derek.
Good evening, guys. Lita had some family business here to take care of tonight, so she's unable to stay. Advice, Jeremy. Curtis. Call roll.
I will call roll. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Trammell.
Here.
Mr. Mullins.
Here.
Mr. McMackins.
Here.
Ms. Thomas. Ms. Curtis.
Here.
Douglas Jennings. Here. Terry Reagan.
Here.
Amy Brandon.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you have quorum. Mr. Randy Gannon is absent, and Ms. Letha Thomas is absent. I did. I believe I did. I'll say again, Mr. McMackins.
Yeah. Item number 2 is the review of the budget process with approximate timeline, schedule of
Did you
meetings.
call Crystal? Did I not? Sorry, I neglected to call my colleague, and I'm going by this. I don't have my roll sheets here, so I don't have that yet. But I'll get that next. So Crystal, let's see.
Okay, item number 2, review the budget process with approximate timeline, schedule of meetings for January 2023 through May 11th. This is to have a calendar. Anybody have particular dates that they would like to have a meeting on in the months of January, February, March, April, May? I think right now we're shooting for 1 meeting a month.
We do, but I would strongly suggest, as you move along through the process, we look at two dates per month as we move along, if not maybe 3 dates per month as you move along through the process. But I think the board may be meeting just to look at, to catch a breather and do some budget work too at some point during as we move along. Done this a long time. I've done through, this will be my 6th budget I've worked on, so lots to think about and lots to do as you go along the process. So I would say at least 2 times per month, and then in that month of April, before you wind up, and you have to have this budget over to, by law, to the budget committee of Buchanan County by May the 15th. So the Buchanan County Board meets on May the 11th. And so the workshop that you will approve that budget is on May the 9th. So please be cognizant of that. Graduation is on the 19th of May, but just be cognizant of those other.
I would suggest meeting once in January and seeing how much information we've got at that point before we decide how many more. Because as he said, as time passes, we'll have to meet more. But if we don't have any more information than we've got right now, it won't be too much to discuss in January.
We would like to set January's meeting and wait for the others to be here in January and go February, March. Do we have anybody have a date in January they're about to run?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you've got the 10th and the 12th. That's probably going to be occupied. One of those 2 dates is going to be occupied by the board. That's your special call meeting dealing with the director of next
Yeah, the first, Thursday. I know.
Our-
Did we change the, no, it's just the time, it's the first Thursday. Yeah.
So the January, that's January 5, that would be out. And Brent and Crystal, is any other committee meetings that you know? I know Diane sent that schedule out of the budget. If they were gonna be starting to meet.
Or are you talking about just other community meetings?
Yeah, that's where you,
She hasn't given us her January calendar yet.
okay,
Usually by the first of the month, they'll send out a calendar of all the meetings.
okay.
So as of right now, I know that there's an ambulance story meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
Or 20th. Maybe 28th.
It's a Saturday. 23rd is Monday.
23rd is Monday. That will be the ambulance meeting. But between there,
You probably won't be able to schedule everything they have, so they've got
No.
ambulance, all these other meetings.
Alrighty. So the Board of Education has a special call meeting, the 10th. from
Y'all meetings
1
at
to
6
12.
now or 6:30?
which meeting?
Commission,
6.
6. Okay, so January,
Our monthly meeting for January for the County Board of Education is the workshops on the January 17th and the meeting is January 19th. Does anybody have the last week of January, the day, when the 23rd?
24.
Rather come on besides Tuesday, Thursday, if that's what we have to do, it's okay.
Can't do that.
It's all. But I'll be okay, but if we have to do it on Tuesday, I mean, I can make it.
Is Thursday better for you or
Thursday's okay.
so Tracy?
26th, okay.
26 is Wednesday.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's.
I'll send you reminders on this, and then you will think about doing another one, Derek, or in February or not.
I would wait, we're gonna wait.
To
till
wait till
January
Mr. Gannon
meeting.
and Letha could be- And location, committee room, or,
Around the boardroom, they got better seats there. Good sized seats.
Either, I don't know where y'all.
you tell me, and I'll try to check. I'll check the committee room first, and then if not, boardroom. Is that, and we can use the classroom too, because we want to gather around this. I think we could get enough chairs at the table for everybody. We may. I'll check the committee room first and then boardroom second, okay? I just don't know when that budget committee was, Brent. I got a thing from Diane saying for us to look at that on the budgets that she sent out. So I'll check that email while y'all talking.
What are you asking about, Bree?
Just the budget committee itself,
When
when they're gonna be meeting or starting. Okay, see if they've got that. We can go on, Derek. I mean, I'm just saying, we'll check on the location and I'll let you know plenty of time before that meeting time is done.
Number 3 on the ninth agenda is an update from the County Board of Education regarding the strategic plan 2023 through 2027. Right, as we voted on a while ago, we are leaving schools for next 23, 24, the way they are with the rezoning. So more we get to add to that right now, for this meeting in particular.
I would not, because we're gonna go back to that strategic plan now that the board has voted what they have voted on. And then give you some recommendations one thing that of course we'll look at the zoning part, we'll look at that. One thing I've asked the supervisors to do is to, for your next meeting, we will go through the strategic plan and put anticipated numbers, dollar signs by each one of those things that the supervisors and principals have looked at, and give you approximate dollar signs for that. So if you're going to add this position, then we'll have the dollar sign for that position. And that's insurance and everything. These supervisors do that all the time. And they can go back through and they can look at those. And then you can direct us on the line items when you start going through the budget. You can direct us. One thing I'm going to try to do is to get you on personnel, which is that's our biggest thing in the budget. Okay, is the cost of personnel. What I'm going to try to do is go down through our personnel list. Douglas can help me on this, and develop a personnel list that this is where the line item, where that position is at. That we can go back through. This is the exact line item for that position. Some of it's federal. Where does that come from? Some of it is done by grants. Where does that come from? And you go through that and separate what is federal, what is special grant that we're doing. Where does that salary come from? Is it from GP? If it's from GP, where the major part of that is, it'll have it on there. And I'm looking at doing positions of every school, and whether it's a custodian or whether it's this, where does that appear in the budget? I think that would probably help us by more anything in my estimation. Y'all tell me, is that going to be a helpful document or not? So Douglas, we won't do it before Christmas. Okay, I'm not putting you on 2 days from now.
Y'all got to quit having people to quit hiring people. By the time I get it up to date, then it's not up to date.
But we can know what that position is, but then again, the problem with personnel is this a 20-year veteran with a master's, or a 20-year veteran with a bachelor's, or those numbers are changing, but we can still know where that is at in the budget. Where does that appear in the budget itself? Is it in whatever you're looking at when you're going down through this budget?
Well, your biggest line item is 7110116. That's the local classroom teachers.
Sheet you gave us last, I think you provided us, where it said whether they have master's or whatever degree is how much their salary is.
Now, he's got to come down.
So
It's only good.
we ought to be able to look at that, at the salary of that teacher, and tell what they have.
Yes, sir. Most assuredly.
Thank you.
No, but that's what I'm saying. The strategic plan is under development, and it will continue to be under development. The board will vote on that to adopt at some point between now and probably April. The board will go through and adopt that strategic plan for 22 through 27. And there, what we might do is say this is from 23 to, now that the board has tried to decide where we're at, could be 23, 28 in the next 5 years. So you got that.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a copy of what was proposed on the strategic plan from this last meeting. To me, that's a big document, but it's a very detailed document too, because it goes along with our district improvement plan. It goes along with that as a big part of that strategic plan. This is what we've looked at to improve upon, and it's in multiple ways that it agrees with the goals that the board has already set.
I have a question with regard to that. You've listed under objective 2 all of these additional resources that you need. And I was guessing at the numbers, but I don't know how many
The actual that we need.
right, for example.
We'll look at that when we have our district leadership meeting coming up on January 4th. we'll go back and review that. We need 2 positions, or we need 3 positions. That's what you're
That's
saying
right,
to
yeah,
me.
because
So yes, absolutely. And some of that may not be in this next year's budget, but will be in an FY 25 budget.
I counted 39 additional, and I know if that's additional or not, but that's a lot of additional.
Before 2027. Yeah, it's not all next year.
Yeah.
And that's what, and we're saying pie in the sky, folks. That's what we're saying there, is this could happen. And then too, I would beware. I'm gonna be on the Hill a lot, the Capitol Hill, a lot when it's in session. And so I'm gonna try to bring you details back to this body on how TISA is progressing. I have asked Mary Ann Dursky, who is over all of ed financing for the state of Tennessee, educational finance. She is the guru. Douglas loves her. They're on a first name basis, literally, Mary Ann and Clark. So I'm going to ask her to come and describe if we can the next one. And I'll ask her, Mary Ann, can you be here at 6 o'clock on the 26th, not in person, but on Zoom, and see if she can give y'all a rundown on, but now the legislature will be in session. I don't anticipate TISA changing a whole lot. I'm the legislative liaison for all the Upper Cumberland directors. So I'm going to be on the Hill more than I have been, but as the Upper Cumberland directors, representing the director of schools. But in that capacity, I want to try to help you, try to give a heads up on what's coming down from the legislature. And you never know, when the legislature's in session, you never know what's going to be a mandate that they have to put in place. Just like you guys, the commissioners understand that. There's always these mandates coming out from the state. So I'll try to keep you informed.
Unfunded mandate.
You are correct, Commissioner Bradley. So you fund them. We're dealing with that all the time. That body's not.
Any more discussion on regarding the strategic plan?
And we'll try to have that ready for you, members. We'll have that ready for you by the next meeting on the 26th. So, Ms. Mullins, make note, Ms. Alexander, make note of that. Okay, January 26th, make sure that we're having our strategic plan completed, revised strategic plan completed with numbers. And numbers we would like to ask for was whatever year position, FY 24, FY 25, FY. Thank y'all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The district leadership meeting. A district leadership meeting is when we get together, central office staff, supervisors, get together with principals, and those are the district leaders throughout our district, and then they help to do that. Now, what we hope to do is to run that by some parent committees as well, some parents who are on that, who we can ask, and we already have that, a parent advisory council that we can run that by too, that Ms. Mullins chairs. So I want to run that by some parents, I want to run that by some teachers, some educators. I will probably ask Josie Sizzle, who is the CCEA representative of teachers, that she would be there too when we start looking at the strategic plan from that aspect. And you're invited, y'all are invited, y'all can come in, you're invited if you'd like to attend DLM and discussion of that. I'll put that probably up toward the top of that agenda item. If you want to come. I'll let you know, it's 8:30 a.m. on January the 4th.
Regarding the state funding formula, it would be helpful for the budget committee to have an idea of how many students in what category those students are, so that we can project the state funding.
Already working on that, but then again, that changes every few days.
Understand, yeah.
But we can give you a rough estimate on, you've got this many in category 2 of special ed. You've got these that are in that are free reduced lunch. You've got these that are, are economically disadvantaged, excuse me. You've got those categories, and I'm with you, Terry, we're already working on that too.
Have a copy of that.
The next school board meeting on the,
I keep
on the
thinking,
night, on the 17th perhaps.
I keep thinking that the state would provide us a worksheet and the plan, you put it up there and calculate stuff for you. I don't think they're far enough along with it, yes, sir. That sounds like something.
If that happens, that'll be a lot easier for us because we can populate that. And then in Skyward, that's how critical our data is. Lisa, you want to say something about that?
In EIS, which is the state website that houses and has all the information on all of our students, there are already data available to show you what category students are in, how many students are in that category.
Right, they're weighted categories.
Yeah, so
like,
they're weighted, so it just depends on.
if they're an ELL student, you're gonna receive more funding. If they're a student with characteristics of dyslexia, you'll receive more funding. If they're so good, and those receive category weighted, so we just go by our Skyward data that will generate that, we can plug in.
We plug in all that data constantly. Like if they're receiving tutoring, that's what their program. If they're CTE.
Do you have those numbers?
Yes, sir.
Can we get a copy of that?
Sure, the state has already generated a projection as well, based on the data in EIS.
That would be.
But remember, this is it constantly changes.
Right,
It's
but it's weighted
constantly
data.
changes, but yes, we can get you.
And under what the budget committee needs to understand too, is those TIS, the TISA numbers will be generated, they're based on certain months in the OBEP.
Right.
But the OBEP is gone. These numbers will be generated, Ms. Stephanie, what are we hearing that these numbers are gonna be generated once a month? Lisa, are you hearing that
Yes,
through your Skyward groups?
monthly.
So we don't know what day of the month, but once a,
It can increase and decrease.
yes, it can fluctuate from one month to the other.
I think they'll have the numbers to us somewhere between the 10th and the 15th, and then we'll have a 2-week period to appeal, a window to appeal those if we think somebody's not coding correctly.
They've got some old harmless things in place for the first year or two. I don't think your funding's gonna go down unless your student can't go play that way. I think they say, if you've got 200 special ed kids this year, you've got 199 next year, and then if it all doesn't work out, the formula they guarantee you're not gonna get less. I saw that on the slide.
Yes, that's correct. That's what you saw. Stephanie?
Well, and also I just wanted to remind you of what Ms. Bonnie has been saying. Several of her grants that fund various programs are now rolled into TISA funding formula as well. So we have to really figure out how that is gonna impact our overall funding as well.
And that's where your, what would be an example, an easy example of that would be health and safety. Coordinated school health is one where I'm really concerned because if that is designated right now, and that's the problem going from the program-based funding to the student-based funding. If it's program, then it's hard to put that in there, but it needs to, they say it's in the base, it's in the base. That's the key word from the state, it's in the base. But
You had sent us a letter from the governor's office.
yes,
February
One-
24th.
$1.4 million is what was on that. Is
I
that-
mean, it's got a few numbers, I mean, is any of that accurate, or is that?
That's a great question. I've asked that. Multiple ones have asked that. And this says, here's the word from the Tennessee Department of Education. A new letter is forthcoming. So great question, Amy. I'm waiting for that forthcoming email.
But we can kind of.
Yeah, you can kind of judge by that. It's going to be, we think 1.4 million, I think is in that letter. 1.4 million is what is projected. But then again, I hate to say that projections can change. But they said we can't go below what we had under the current. That is the good news. Notice you were at that finance meeting. Did they say anything from that slide or anything? That you're not gonna be reduced?
Right, it's in a, I think I got a PowerPoint, I printed off from them, so
Yeah, it's the whole harmless, that was about, yeah, like first year they match 100%, and then it goes down 75, and then 50%, and then year 4, 25%.
Is that, is that have the FY years on that, Jessica? Is it got FY 24, FY 25?
23, 24 is year one.
Okay, FY 24 is year one. Thank you, because I don't have a copy of that. I do not have a copy of that, so y'all are getting more, y'all get that I ain't got yet, so that's good. Sorry for you English teachers listening, I used to work, so I apologize for that. But,
And also, I'm sorry.
no,
And also, you have, it says school districts must have been eligible for the year 1 hold harmless to get the year 2 hold harmless. So if you, it's not like, you know, you gotta qualify year 1 for the hold harmless to be able to continue that.
okay. Now, is that a new hold harmless, or was that the old BEP hold harmless?
This is the.
This is the TISA, this is a new hold harmless, okay. That'll be a great question for Mary Ann Dursky when we get her to meet with this committee. Great question for her is where is Cannon County specifically going to be at? And we can ask, instead of, she'll give you the generalized TISA, and I think I sent y'all those slides. Did I send all the committee a copy of that TISA slide back when we first did the committee? Okay, those slides haven't changed. I was on the website the other day. Those have not changed. Slides from the state. So they're continuing on. I do anticipate perhaps new leadership at the Department of Ed. New governor, governor's been reelected. Normally what happens, I'm gonna be my government teacher here for a second. Brent loves it, but I'm a government teacher. So I will tell you, normally commissioners don't stay the entire second 4 year of the term. Commissioners change. And my Curtis prediction, when you take that for what it's worth, I believe that there'll be a commissioner change in education within the next year. That's a Curtis prediction. Don't tell Penny I said that, but I just anticipate that. It's just normal operating. And if there's a commissioner change, this isn't going to change this, but the implementation, it can change. But the red legislature is very specific. This is how it's going to be done this in the next FY24. And I'll give you details as soon as I get them from the legislature about any kind of possible, changes. Any legislature can, they can have so many bills they can do, but there's a lot of scrutiny under this right here. A lot of scrutiny. So SROs I think are going to be addressed during this session. Shane Reeves promised me that. Promised to Wade that the other day. SROs is a big deal with us right now. I want them in every school, and so it's very important that we have that. So SROs going to be addressed, and I think Shane's committed to taking, as my suggestion was, of taking the current SRO thing we have in E-Plan and just apply it to everybody. So I'll give you updates on that. But I know that's not part of your budget. It is a little bit because I think Bonnie has a part of an SRO that they've combined with the sheriff's budget in doing that. So I hope if we get that, I think we look at, matching grant that the county can assist us in that too. Commissioners can help us in that. So Greg and I are working on that. So hopefully commissioners will be able to help us support that and get that through.
I couldn't believe it. We had SROs. That's not a secure situation. But we need brains to figure out the schedule of campus to just get the one he's not at. It's ridiculous. They're very interested in doing something like that. What I wanted to ask Doug is, I don't know how this works. I should know. I never asked this question before. But is it going to change? Does the state send us a lump sum right there? Was it trickle in through the month?
10 times a year.
So that's why the data collecting monthly to change the numbers.
It can, and I don't know how they're gonna do it next year. I don't anticipate even different revenue codes, and I anticipate, this is me thinking, there'll be one line that's kind of going to be a flat amount every month, then maybe another line that's all these things that have the weights on it, that will probably, another line over here. And that way you'll be able to see
Yeah.
how that changes. That's just me thinking,
Yeah,
because they have
that'd
told
be
us
nice.
anything yet.
Another great question, Randy. Jot these questions down because when she gets, here, I'd like you to have those questions for her. That after her presentation, you point blank, say, this is what we're concerned about. This is another area we're concerned about. Have those questions ready for her once we get her here. And I'm sorry.
What was the first? What was the first one? I've already forgot what was gonna ask you.
Hold on, let's hold on.
Hold harmless, where we at, hold harmless. What else is in there, Jessica, you want? I'm glad you brought that, because y'all's training is probably fresher than what anybody's got at this table right here right now. Was there anything else on TISA that she said about hold harmless was one? If you're eligible for hold harmless year one, you're going to be eligible for hold harmless year two, is that it?
No, you have to.
Meet the conditions.
You have to meet the conditions in year one to be considered for year two.
Okay.
So it's like, if you don't get it the first year, you cannot. get
You're
it
out,
the
you're
second
out,
year.
you're done, okay.
Yes.
But more than likely, those things are gonna show up in year one. I mean,
Right.
it's gonna show up at all. It's gonna show up in
Right.
year one.
Just kind of ask her how this play out.
How's that going to be
There's gonna be
distributed?
a line there showing us, where it's fluctuating.
That's just me thinking, that's how they're.
But look at that. Yeah, that's a possibility. That's gonna happen.
And I think, Freddie, that's probably one of the reasons behind the request for a data analyst. So that we could,
We need to put that needs to be a top priority in this budget, is a data analyst that will look at the data continually. Lisa's crew is they are the intake. Lisa intakes every single person that comes in.
No, but we need to. We need to do that. We just do people who don't have proof of residence or whatever, but that's what yes, right. But we need to do every single new student needs to come through that office.
And when they do, they're our data input. Our secretaries are our data people that put them in for the first time. And Lisa's crew has been working on consistency in that. But Lisa's role is doing other things. You gotta have eyes on that data every single day, because we're finding out things now. Lisa, you were finding out things now that we probably should have known beginning of the school year. And our other platforms, everything's dependent on Skyward, everything. Now, not only is academic materials, so the curriculum that we're using, the testing that we're doing, testing is critical right now. That the testing that we're doing, everything is based upon our student information system, Skyward. And if you have bad data, it's going to affect you, because that data is pulled and it goes from Skyward to EIS, which is the state of Tennessee, and there's a conversion. Lisa, you'll talk more about that, a mathematical conversion, right?
Correct. It's supposed to convert overnight. That's the ideal. But we constantly get emails saying it didn't go through the night, it didn't convert, it didn't happen. Or there's errors in it, which is what we go in and try to fix on a daily basis to see if there's a misspelled name, if there's a code wrong somewhere, if another county is sharing that student with us, just various. Or just, it could be anything from a teacher.
We're getting better, however, with a set of eyes on a data analyst person that's looking at that constantly, they will earn their salary very, very quickly. Because if you've got errors, there's people, if it's an intake error, let's say, you've got an error, you've got to fix that. And the more rapidly you fix that, the quicker that's not going to have financial implications, or testing implications, or curriculum implications, because everything that we do now is based upon this. So if it's student-based funding, you gotta have your student base correct.
And my concern, in thinking about this is that, if the secretaries are doing this, this is only one fraction of their job responsibility,
Correct.
okay? But it's the most important aspect of the funding process for the entire system.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we're relying on a teacher, a secretary, who's got a million things to do to get this right.
Other systems have a person that just does enrollment. That's all they do
Per school.
in our school.
And we don't have that. And then they have one person at the central office that, or a team, they don't have one person. I think we're one of the only counties that just has one person in the central office. But a team of people at the central office working on data.
My concern is, the person's gonna come in next year's budget. And we'll be behind the sticks. I'm saying, they're gonna jump in the middle of the school year, all this data's gonna be thrown at them, they gotta get up to speed and then schools start, it's going. So when are we gonna put this person in place? What's the soonest we put that person in place?
That it will be up to
Right now.
Well, I'm just throwing that out there. Everybody.
Yeah, it needs to.
But we also want
Marty,
to
you were saying,
stay on here to see what we're going to pay on in the future.
Got a question. Now, I'm an outsider, but I'm looking at this from an outside point of view. What is the ratio of administrative staff to teaching?
It varies, when you say administrative staff, is that all
I'm
administrators?
talking about
Or
all
is
the
that-
support people in the central office and everywhere else that they're at.
We've never done an analysis on that, but I guarantee you, we're stretched compared to other systems that are, I can guarantee that right now.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
just,
know.
but
But
I
if
look
you-
at it as.
Yeah, if you look at principals to teachers, or you're looking administrative, it depends on what you call administrators. You call administrators, teachers, principals, assistant principal, and then what you have at central office, is that what you're saying, Jerry?
Yeah, and all the other, I'm talking about janitorial staff, cafeteria staff,
Everybody.
all the helpers,
EAs, federal
all that
EAs,
stuff,
everything like
you know,
that. You could probably, our current enrollment in that sheet that you passed out tonight was what? So I look at that, and then look at the current staff on that list too. Carol, we'll get you a copy of that. That you could probably do that same analysis on that sheet right there. 1654,
Yeah, well, that's what we're.
okay, 1705. And then if you, it depends on if you count pre-K or don't count.
Well, if you're looking at the overall staff.
So if you want an administrative thing, yeah, absolutely. So you figure 1705, and we have how many administrative staff on that list? So I'm just trying to give you rough numbers. That would do that.
23, but that doesn't count that's just what's.
Now, we'd have to go back to list all EAs. You know that list, the one that we did last year, that had everybody at that particular school, that's what we need to do again. We can have that to you next month. That's an interesting fact. I'd like to see how much how we do that as an upper cover. Yeah. And Terry, that will also depend on the funding source, whether it's federal, we got a certain amount of federal, pre-K has so many, who else, ESSER has so many, food service has so many. We can give you a rough estimate on that, and then someone said, well, how many administrators, you top end, you don't administrator, absolutely not. I got multiple people doing multiple roles. Absolutely. I mean, it's just incredible what our staff does compared to other places, I'll put it that way.
Any more special? Move on to number 4 is the current 22-23 budget. Current budget year to date review. I guess a lot of this kind of might fall in Douglas, or the finance department of.
You've got all the current reports. Keep in mind, when you look at that, the teacher line items, teachers get paid 3 times in June. So it looks like we're really way ahead, not spending everything we're budgeted. Just remember, in June, they're gonna pull the plug and they're gonna get 3 checks in June. So that's something you need to think about when you look at it. Because the teachers get paid 12 times a year. Other than that, I mean, it's self-explanatory. I don't think you need to read it to you. I know there's some big things probably coming up in council outlay. A couple of POs today for about $10,000-12,000. That's just a line item that you gotta watch, keep the brakes on it all we can. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Got something going on with the cooling tower. Moving around, waiting for that. Self-explanatory.
Anybody have any questions on this current budget right now? That would be okay.
We can add that to the January agenda. I mean, this is an email, we'll add that to the January agenda for discussion.
Great job. Anything else for current budget?
And just when you look at your budget estimates there, and just looking at that, and when you see that $17,726,719 in revenue, and then you see, an estimated expenditure of 20 million, that just shows you that's a running estimate of what you think that that revenue, that expenditure. Right, this is the budget report passed, and then you look at your actual figures that you do month by month. That is the most helpful thing that we get, is what is happening month
There's
by
a
month.
lot of things on one of those reports. It gets kind of confusing because they give you the percentage. Well, you're gonna look at property tax, it's gonna look like, wow, we're way up on property tax, but it all comes in starting in October through February. February is the biggest one. And after that, it's cut off to a cool grip, so you can't get too excited about what's coming in there. So those percentages, they kind of look like, we're really doing something that you're not, because the computer generates those percentages. I don't have anything to do with what it does.
Items of importance in FY 24 budget, 2023-2024 school year. Items that are needed in the FY 24 budget and how this is accomplished. I would like to think this definitely stepped out without a effect.
And Lisa, can you get, okay, here she comes.
She right now. She wanted to add on some of these, the grant positions that we are, grant funded positions right now that will be added back to the GP in 2023-2024 school year. We have 2.5 nurses as of right now that will hit back. Right now, Miss Bonnie Grant is paying for half of one, and Esther's paying back half of the other. Alexander, I hate to put you on a spot as you walk in.
Come on down, you're the next contestant.
On nurse number 3 that you sent us on October 13th to tell us about last night, it is half paid for Miss Bonnie's grant and other from Esther. Will that be a full funded position that will hit in 23? Or a half funded position?
Okay, so actually, it was added to this year's budget. So nurse 1, 2, and 3 are all fully funded out of GP this year.
Okay,
1 and 2 were full-time nurses. We've had those for quite some time. And we just supplanted their salaries last year with that epidemiology and laboratory capacity grant. And she got a grant that would only pay for a half a nurse, and that was Miss Emily here. And then we paid the other half of her salary out of ESSER. But that was actually added back to GP this year.
so,
But your requirement of how many nurses you have, you have more nurses than you're required to have. I'm not saying that's how many you don't need, but that's a requirement.
One of the LBEP, you had one nurse for every 3,000
Yeah.
people. In TISA, that was one of the big issues in the debate at the legislature last year, that we're not fully funding, helping the state funding nurses. And big debate, but that was a big line item too, I mean, on budget. However, in TISA, that was reduced to, Bonnie's not here, that was reduced slightly. I don't know how much. I think it was reduced to one for every, instead of 3,000, I think it's one every 2,000 or 1,000.
Not to help us.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. For small school system, there is inequity personified, in other words.
Well, I would love to have a nurse in every building, simply because, and I don't know, how the children in each building, but I just feel like that the nurses, one of the main things that they're gonna have to do is, if you have diabetics in the building, finger sticks, insulin, things like that, you have to do that at the same time at every single school. You have to do it before lunch. It's not like, oh, I can do you at 11 and I'll come to, over here and do you at 2. It's not like that. It has to be done at the same time at every school. And so, I mean, I don't know how we're accomplishing that. I don't, know our student makeup and their needs right now. But,
We have fewer students on travel to now than what we did,
right,
but there's more and more of that.
yes.
It's more
And then
more.
I'm sure there are other needs. I mean, I don't know.
So speaking as a teacher and as an administrator, when students fall on the playground and break a bone, it is typically not when the school nurse is there. Or if there's an injury in the gym during PE and, somebody hits their head or something of that nature. We're also relying on those secretaries and people in that front office to triage sick kids on a regular basis.
So that
And
secretary
distribute medication.
used for other things.
Right.
And enroll students at the same time.
And answer the phone, so, right.
Again, that's not this community's job, is to tell the board how many nurses they need. That's the board's job to tell us how many they want in.
Right.
That's not
Right,
our
depending
job
on the
to determine that.
medications given, sometimes they do have to go through training for that.
Yes, that's correct.
But
So
it is a lot.
Bonnie can give you details if you think it's real, like you want to examine that. I miss Bonnie there. She can go into intimate details with why we had to have another, because we had a situation where we had to add one. And I'm not gonna violate anything HIPAA here, but it was a special needs student with major medical situation that we had to hire. Two.
So that's what I was gonna speak to.
Go ahead,
Mr.
go ahead,
Kirk.
I'm sorry.
So nurse number 4, we had originally, when Miss Bonnie addressed you all at the beginning of school, after we had a couple of new students enrolled with major medical needs, we looked at that. We were, still looking at the ESSER 3 budget, and that's where we put it in. Fortunately, we did have some carryover in that ELC grant. So we were actually able to fund this nurse's position for the remainder of the year. The nurse didn't start until mid-September out of that ELC grant. So we do still have money allocated in ESSER 3 for that 4th nurse. and we can use that money next year.
one
So
nurse.
that would not be something, if we're gonna have 4 nurses, that you would have to think about putting back into the GP budget until FY 25.
So one nurse, we wouldn't have to go back to the GP, right? One nurse.
And not till FY 25. This year, ELC's paying for it. Next school year, ESER 3 will pay for that position.
And we were very fortunate, those that don't know, but in past year, under the ELC grant, that epidemiology grant that she's describing, we were one of the first to apply, got it. And then others didn't apply, and we got another allotment. Is that right? Or something similar?
They had actually talked about redistributing money after the fact, but I think they extended that window and actually started reaching out to other districts to apply. That was actually one that Ms. Bonnie had applied for before I actually began
Right.
this role. But the
But the-
ELC grant was very specific. The sole intent of that grant was to be able to provide on-demand COVID-19 testing to allow us to return to school in person. So it
And we got
was
some,
very
we got
strict.
some other things too with that grant. We got equivalent grant. We have some of the best now, one of the best clinics around, because we had room at the high school. We converted a room there that's got probably one of the best clinic that I'll put our clinic in.
That's our district COVID-19 testing.
Yes, it is. It's our district COVID-19 site.
It's very nice. She has diabetic stations there. I mean, it's a fully equipped classroom that was converted into the health services center for students. That grant did allow for funds to be utilized to convert that classroom to a clinic. So, and we were also able to supplant the two full-time nurses' salaries. We also supplanted 2 guidance counselor salaries out of that particular grant as well.
You're doing that this year.
That's a different grant. Last year, we did ELC, and this year we're supplanting those 2 guidance counselor salaries again out of the Tennessee Best for All grant.
Okay, I have a question on, that was my next go to nurses. You've got counselor number 1 and number 2
Mhm.
to end in FY 22, FY 23, and add a GP FY 24.
Yes, so honestly, Derek, it's really adding back to GP. These were 2 counselors that have been in place for quite some time. It's just that we had the opportunity through these sub-grants to supplant their salaries. So that was just kind of a way for us to offset GP and GP to save a little money last year through the ELC grant, this year with the Tennessee Best for All grant. So those are not new positions. Those positions were there before we actually received these federal COVID relief dollars. We were just able to supplant those salaries.
Starting next year, we'll have to pick them back up.
Yes, that is correct.
And this technology trainer, that is a new position.
It is. Let me talk about counselor number 3.
Oh,
and
I'm
then-
sorry.
No, it's okay. Just while we're there, and that way to explain that. Counselor number 3, the third counselor that, now there's 2 counselors at Canyon County High School. These are the counselors that are covering our K-8 or pre-K-8 schools. Ms. Bonnie had requested that in the ESSER dollars, just there's always been a need, but that need was very, magnified after the school shutdowns and things of that nature. So she requested that for the ESSER dollars, and that person was paid out of ESSER 2 last year. This year, they're paid out of ESSER 3. That's also allocated for next year to pay that position. Now, after FY 24, so for FY 25, in order to maintain that third counseling position, that's going to be a brand new position added to GP, because GP's never funded that position. The technology trainer, that is a new position this year. That's Ms. Jackie Berger. It is being paid for, at the time that I created this, for the finance department, Mr. Applebaum requested this. We were still looking into the funding source. That position's actually funded out of ESSER 3 for 1 year only. And at the time, that was what the board requested, is that I looked at, can we fund that position for 1 year?
Is it this current year?
It is, for this current year. So again, it would either have to be added to the GP budget for FY 24 or going back through a revision in ESSER 3, but it would have to come from another line item at that point. So,
You briefly explained to everybody what that was.
wow, I will do my best.
Mr. Bedford would be good.
You kind of have all the.
Right, so one of the things that she does is maintain our district and school websites. The other thing she does is lots of technology support for teachers and training for teachers. For example, one of my tutors came to me in the last couple of weeks, and we have something called ClassLink. ClassLink is a single sign-on. It's supposed to make our lives easier, teachers and students, and it does if it works and everything is linked. The little caveat to that is if a student logs into a desktop or they log into their Chromebook, they can get to ClassLink, but unless they manually link their Google account to ClassLink, ClassLink's not going to do what it's designed to do, which is save their usernames and passwords. So if you're thinking about, and this was actually a first grade class that my tutors were working with, and she came to me and she said, we're having to put in these usernames and passwords every single day these kids come to tutoring. And that can be a little bit time consuming for a 6 or 7 year old. So I said, but that's not the intent of ClassLink, so let's problem solve. So I went to Jackie Berger and I said, help us figure this out. So what we have learned is that students' ClassLink account had never been linked to their Google account. So that was what was making them have to log in every single time. Well, as we progress through the grade bands, we have Gallopay for social studies for grades 3 through 5. We have CKLA for K-5. We have SAVIS for 612 ELA. Numerous programs, instructional programs at the high school level. SchoolNet, which is a formative assessment that is, we give 3 times a year. It's a predictive test to show how students are going to do on their EOC or their TCAP test. All of that's housed within ClassLink. So I went to Miss Jackie and I said, hey, can you help? So she started with my tutor. I reached out to principals and I said, is this something that you have as a need in your school? And Miss Jackie spoke with the assistant principals yesterday, and she was already in school today, going around to all those classrooms and making sure that that piece of technology is working for all students. So, and then it's going to require training for teachers too, moving forward.
She is indeed.
That's just a
Some
small
school
snippet.
systems
That's just
have
an example.
one of those technology coaches
Yeah.
at every school.
Mhm.
Some school systems close by have a technology individual, a coach, not just a repair person, but a coach that does only that at every school.
And I know that she's worked closely with Dr. Melton, who is our curriculum and instruction supervisor, and Ms. Lisa from the Skyward perspective. Why is the child's Gallopay not working? Why is the child's CKLA not working? So she has really worked closely with Michael Medford and others trying to problem solve and figure out, because technology is really here to make our lives run a little more smoothly, right? So we have to make sure that it's all the dots are connected. So that's just a little bit of what I know about what Ms. Jackie does.
That's why I wanted to say that, because a name, a job title gets thrown out and we just don't know about it. So our first thought is it really needed. And what we're gonna have to really think about, I love grants. Praise God for grants. But we've got to get off the mindset that that's how we're gonna operate. We're gonna operate off of grants. We've got to develop a budget. If we do get a grant in, great. But if it doesn't come, jobs like this and other jobs are essential and they need to be in the budget eventually.
Stephanie used the word a while ago that you don't hear much in federal projects, and that's the word supplant.
Right.
Yeah.
You've never been able to take federal funds and supplant GP.
That was an unpardonable sin
Until these,
until these ESSER grants come, and then all of a sudden,
then we could do it. And so what happened basically, Stephanie looked and she said, okay, we can fund these counselors, and we can fund this nurse or whatever. And what it would do, we were following the rules of the grant, but it freed up GP money to go into fund balance, or making sure we dipped into our fund balance list. So she was able to do that. But when this is gone, we won't be able to say, okay, Kathy's federal projects budget, oh, we're gonna start funding counselors of it. No, you might could add a new counselor, but you couldn't fund the ones you've got with you.
It'd be
That's a
like
no-no
cocaine addict,
with federal
looking for a
projects.
source.
And so
Ain't got it.
I'm saying that to say we're gonna be in a world of hurt when all this is over, with what we've been able to do. We're gonna be in a world of hurt. But again, it's not this committee's job to determine how many counselors we've got. It's the board's job. That's what y'all need to tell us, is what you want.
Right, and I think Ms. Alita stressed this to me before tonight's meeting, was that she wanted to stress what we have and what we're gonna lose, and I know that's the board's decision, but then again, we kind of want to look at it too, if we keep them, can we do that? If we decide to, you know.
I mean, it's good to know what we're gonna have to pay for. you know,
Right.
As opposed to what the grant pays for.
and FY '24, not hardly as bad as what FY '25 is going to be, because all the ESSER, even though Stephanie's still, you're still going to be having to account for this even until 2026.
For somebody is.
Yes, somebody is, sorry. Being presumptuous there, but
Well, I'm just, because my position as well is funded by grants. Right. Right, it's funded through June 30th of 2024. At that point, all grants will be expired, but the reporting, the yearly reporting will have to continue through FY '26. And they said about 18 to 20 days work. Is, if you did nothing but that reporting. It's about a month's work, but it's based on
Spread out.
all of the records that, I mean, I know now what they're wanting, so I've set up structures and procedures to be able to collect the data, so that this next year, I'm collecting the data as the programs unfold, so it might take a little bit less this next year, maybe.
You can see her job was required. This was a requirement. We took the grants, we had to fund that. And I can tell you, she took that and ran with it. I call her Miss S. That's what
Everybody calls her.
I mean, if you wanna know anything about it, she's got a notebook back there.
and she had to learn that.
Yes, she did.
She had to learn that coming from being an administrator, but also from a classroom perspective, classroom teacher, as a principal. And she take that and
So did everybody in every other district, goes on something brand new.
Oh, yes, yes.
Can you send what you've sent the board, these grant funding positions? Can you send that to this budget committee so they can see what we're looking at?
I get you the addresses.
Give me the email.
Yeah, I get the email addresses. It's just adding basically Terry and so
I mean, I've been around.
your email address, we'll get you to get that.
I've heard principals and administrators, they plead a really good case for positions. And sometimes you just have to say no, because you don't have the money. And it's not saying that you don't need it, it wouldn't be beneficial, but sometimes you just have to say no because the money's not there.
And ESSER has been, we've been able to do things, not just our district, every district in the state, particularly if you're small districts, have been able to do things that we never would have thought been able to do. And some of you older board members remember the budget struggles we had in 1819. And 1920, pre-COVID, back before y'all were on the board, there was a major struggles there that we did economic. deal was coming. And then with ESSER, we had a breathing space, if you will. And we've had that breathing space. Now, we know that that breathing space on our budget is going to come to a conclusion in FY 2025. And so you have to be preparing even in 24. Your 24 budget has to be prepared for that.
So I have a question. The money that, is to be received from the sale of the schools. When y'all, last year come up with this 5-year plan, did y'all anticipate that that money would go into a, I don't know, like a savings to build your, build a new school, or is that just go into the budget to be used, or?
It's in a revenue line item right now, because of course, we just realized sale of one building, we actually got the money on one building. So it's in a line item in revenues. And so we estimated, I think, 900,000 for both buildings, and obviously we're gonna get more than that. So that's gonna help the bottom line. But when it's all said and done, you have your expenditures and your revenues, and whatever the difference is, if you spend less than you've taken in, then you're gonna increase your fund balance, and that's what you use to build your buildings or whatever, you wanna do with it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
If we get to the end of the year, and even though we've got that in, we still spent more than we took in, it just makes that flow less. That's kind of how that works.
I just didn't know if that money was untouchable, I guess is what I'm
No,
saying.
it's.
Like, we didn't want to use it.
It's been allocated.
Now,
Yes, thank
you could put it, the board can decide, if they want to put that in a restricted account. I don't know why you can do that, because of the needs that we have and the funding situation we're in. I don't say how you can afford to do that. In the past, like when this building was built, we had directors, Ms. Nell Smith, Barbara Parker, Marcia Melton, that saved money over the years, and they put it in a restricted account to have a building program. So when we started, we didn't start with $0, and we had, I don't know how many million, had a few million in there to start the project. But those days, they will save that money, are long gone. I hope they come back. I hope this helps. I don't really see that happening.
Items of need, that's what we're on.
We're on number 5.
With 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She's had a long day. She drove all the way from Cookville, back from here to Cookville and back, and then came just for this meeting. So that's the dedication of our employees.
Well, something that the board's gonna think about, and of course, we'll give them some recommendations. I think we're going to get. Have a line item for new director salary. So keep that in mind. It's going to be in there somewhere.
Save on this, we're at what they will give us for.
That is a good question to get asked.
Mary Ann that's another one for Mary Ann, who's taking her notes about Mary Ann are there going to be specific lines for things like the director's salary or like assistant principal, and what's your, what's.
You've got that. You've got the line out sort of already set the budget.
Yeah, but is there a set amount that TISA says
With the new.
with the new funding?
Well, they said
Again, a
it's
funding
money
formula,
we
though.
use.
Funding formula, though, is fine.
Again, that's right. Is it was just going to be a funding formula or a spending formula? Because right now, the DEP has more money allocated for the director's salary than we've ever paid. But again, it's not a spending formula, it's a funding formula.
How much is that? You know how much we get out? Because I've never seen that.
It's on that sheet,
It's on the detailed sheet of the BEP.
of the estimates,
It's on there.
It's on probably one of those for tax for tabs, if you'll look, it's on, where it tells you, the nurses and all that, it's probably on that.
In that second sheet there, it's where it's located.
I'm thinking it's like 1/3. I
Is that for the students we have? Do you know by chance that it would, that 130 be for the students we have now? I don't know. I didn't know if it was like 130 for 2,000 kids, and then we pay kind of like a half principal, like we had to pay before. DP pays the rest of the salary, and then we put the other half. You see what I'm saying?
No, it's just,
It's
it's
just
just,
a-
it's on the
number,
court.
okay.
I mean, you can say, okay, we got 130 to pay the rest, we paid it 9. So we're gonna put the other on teacher salaries. When you say that,
Right.
I mean, it just goes into the budget.
That's just what they get.
Yeah.
On this superintendent, one salary allocation, $125,200. County CDF, 100%. So what's that CDF though? This, you put me on that. It's got county CDF 100%. So on that July final BEP, it had CDF on it.
Now there's some counties they probably look.
One more.
What page? you
Page three on the July final. And I think all of y'all have copies of the BEP that I sent y'all in that big dump of, it was a data dump that I gave you of all the budget stuff that I sent y'all back in November. Top of the page, top page 3. Office of Local Education on the July BEP, it's on down, like I say, page 3 of that. It's called
Superintendent. 125.
Superintendent.
I'll see.
One, you're allocated,
Above the same
because
thing.
your size, you're allocated 1 and $125,200. Max is 1 per county, split based upon the total ADM. And I would tell you on some districts, that only cut, you saw Summers, like Wade said earlier, in Sumner County. 210,000.
So we're using another 35 right now somewhere else.
But just like, you get a certain dollar amount for a
Right.
teacher. I mean, you just have to, it just goes
Give
in
you
the
that,
budget. Yeah. It's not restricted, that's not restricted to say that you have to.
CDs.
You don't have to pay your superintendent, it could be used for whatever, because if you look. at that
Underneath it
too,
says
you
county
have the last
CDF.
one's got over $1 million.
Right.
Of course, we've never budgeted much over 350 unless we got a building project.
Right.
The capital outlay. But again, it's how much money you got, and allocate where you want to need it, yeah, do what you need to do.
Especially for the job. Possibly keep it. A trainer job.
Man, you're getting a bargain on me. I'm only a single individual health insurance, so, and I don't have a family plan. I just have single, so.
And their salaries
Get the bargain.
include health. Right?
Of insurance?
Their salary, include their health insurance.
There's a line.
Cost differential.
I thought there was.
See, county
So
CDF,
it'll
cost
change
differential.
when the state says,
Right.
okay, we're going up 7%, it'll change.
I would just like to say, Mr. Chairman, I pulled my FY 23 budget. And you can see every time I put something in about the budget, whether it's going back to an April BEP figure, I just put it in this folder. This is how much that we dealt with last year in the budget process last year. In most years, files that I've kept up with are this thick or more on that. So that's the process that we've done in budgeting since I've been director, is this process. And each board has their own way. I'm glad that the committee exists as a sound board for the board to hear and get the input from commissioners as well. And citizens. Thanks.
Discussion for tonight. Anything you'd like to talk about? I've got right here. Carrie, you want the salary numbers because of the efficiency, correct? Various numbers working on. And how many students, their categories. This place, got to work y'all. Anything else? Anybody needs? And Miss Stephanie, you're gonna send that professor,
Yeah.
yeah, that right there.
Yes. Mr. Curtis is gonna make sure I have everyone's email addresses.
I'll be glad, I'll send you
Or
that.
I could send, or would you?
Send it to him and make him send it out.
Yeah, that's fine. Either one.
And I'll try to get mine before Friday, but if not, I'll get it to you.
And I'll get that, and I've got a folder ready, all I have to do is click, and all y'all's email addresses in one swoop. Have y'all been getting emails? Anybody not getting my emails on that? I mean, you've been getting them for Crystal, I know Randy has, because he had texted me another thing asking something, yes, this last week.
And Douglas has mentioned several times. Here's the ARPA, Douglas, you hear Douglas say that 1,000 times. I've heard that since I've been on the board. This is our budget. So we appreciate the committee for joining us and helping us. And we look for y'all's advice. I know a lot of this it's hard, but I think we're looking for a lot of advice too on we can't afford a new prayer position or not, what y'all think, and I'm very thankful for y'all being here, taking time out of your lives.
One thing I'll add too is the salary distribution, y'all think about this, it's going to go up, whether the baseline salary is going from 40,000 to 42. So every one of your teacher categories will be going up. And one thing I want to develop before June 30th, I will develop for this budget, is looking at every position in Cannon County schools having a salary schedule. We got one, they did a lot of work on janitors and bookkeepers, and I'm talking about every office, every other office that didn't really fit supervisor category, but is also working at central office. I'd like to have a salary schedule developed for every single person, because I just think that's good operating procedure, that you've got a salary schedule for everybody in your system, period. And those are those auxiliary type of people we've been talking about. Nurses, I think, should have a salary schedule, which we do. But that's one thing I will be working on in the meantime. So a lot of work. Merry Christmas.
I think before we go on top of that, what's on my mind. I know Ben suggested last year, his suggestion was we really take a good look at our job. Our job descriptions need to be revamped. It's important because that's the responsibilities and time to that. Then you can tie your salaries to that type of responsibility. So sometimes somebody needs to look at it.
That's on our docket. It is to look at the job descriptions of every single person that works in Cannon County schools. But teachers, it's difficult to do that, but you can have an overall description, no matter what.
You were talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about particular roles in the central office. Yeah. Give me homework. I know, yes, sir, it is. Good for everyone. You know me, it'd be 10. See, I'm laughing more anyways.
We have cell phone sales.
Yeah.
Mr. Douglas.
Or three, have this time just to be interested in this.
So that's just something I want to say that I want to.
Or just,
Yes, I can say it on time. Yes.
I didn't-
So that's a lot of these 6.5, 7.5, use that, I can put it here, and maybe next year. He's only using 3,000 a day, but it's every 3 quarters. To give him something, we don't take it all. That's just something I didn't know. I like it. Last year, I really got.
I love to go work.
I knew more about it last year. My first year, I was involved from
Do that organization.
And I mean, I took it 3 days. I took it.
Love to do this.
Saltwater?
Love to do that.
Oh, no. That's why I thought. I wanted to show that.
Because it's your cousin. I keep saying niece, but your cousin, but your cousin
And I'm telling you,
and I are kind of like.
Thursday and Friday will be a lot at first.
Sort that salt.
I was that was one of the best.
I know Miss Williams.
We went last
But
week.
I was,
I know.
I thought y'all went this.
No, like I said, they didn't, so.
But she's.
All right, so y'all got it figured out. Here's the deal.
And turned in.
January, our budget that we turned in.
What is y'all?
February, Diane, next one. March, we fix the budget.
And the commissioners will give us more money.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
I was thinking.
And we're always doing.
January 30th. The commission wants to have that.
Oh, go on,
There
Brent.
you go.
We don't want to hear. Thank you.
Cause y'all get in trouble,
And,
and that's
And
not
we
fun.
get in trouble for something y'all.
Hey, don't let me call you Bush.
You're at 69.5 cents right now, right?
Yeah.
And where do you have to be at for us to make the?
So where we would like.
Now, where does the county have to be? Our obligation, the county commissioner's
he
obligation
said, he's
to
giving
meet
me.
y'all numbers.
It's Curtis. And Wiley.
I said, here's the
Mr.
other.
Curtis.
I'm sorry.
County, like the state.
Did you, are we done?
Not yet, yeah, I'll turn it off. I was telling a good story too.
I am so sorry, Ed, but
I was telling a good story, Justin. Yes, we're done. Thank you. Thank you for watching, folks. Have a good evening.
Why are you talking?
Well,
I'll be honest with you, I know what you're